Welcome to our channel. Today we list out top 10 plane crashes in the world. So before we go, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. Flying in a jetliner is extraordinarily safe. But air travel only became so reliable because previous accidents ushered in crucial safety improvements. From mid-air collisions, to onboard fires, and a fatigued fuselage that turned a plane into a high-altitude convertible, these 13 famous plane crashes triggered major technological advances in flight safety that keep air travel routine today. Here is the list of top 10 plane crashes in the world. Number 1, Portland United Airlines Flight 173. On December 28, 1978, United Flight 173, a DC-8 approaching Portland, Oregon, with 181 passengers, circled near the airport for an hour as the crew tried in vain to sort out a landing gear problem. Although gently warned of the rapidly diminishing fuel supply by the flight engineer on board, the captain, later described by one investigator as an arrogant SOB, waited too long to begin his final approach. The DC-8 ran out of fuel and crashed in a suburb, killing 10. In response, United revamped its cockpit training procedures around the then-new concept of Cockpit Resource Management, CRM. Abandoning the traditional "the captain is God" airline hierarchy, CRM emphasized teamwork and communication among the crew, and it has since become the industry standard. Number 2, Cincinnati Air Canada Flight 797. The first signs of trouble on Air Canada 797, a DC-9 flying at 33,000 feet en route from Dallas to Toronto on June 2, 1983, were the wisps of smoke wafting out of the rear lavatory. Soon, thick black smoke started to fill the cabin, and the plane began an emergency descent. Barely able to see the instrument panel because of the smoke, the pilot landed the plane in Cincinnati. But shortly after the doors and emergency exits were opened, the cabin erupted in a flash fire before everyone could get out. Of the 46 people aboard, 23 died. The FAA subsequently mandated that aircraft lavatories be equipped with smoke detectors and automatic fire extinguishers. Number 3, Dallas/Fort Worth Delta Air Lines Flight 191. As Delta Flight 191, a Lockheed L-1011, approached for landing at Dallas/Fort Worth Airport on August 2, 1985, a thunderstorm lurked near the runway. Lightning flashed around the plane at 800 feet, and the jetliner encountered a microburst wind shear, a strong downdraft and abrupt shift in the wind that caused the plane to lose 54 knots of airspeed in a few seconds. Sinking rapidly, the L-1011 hit the ground about a mile short of the runway and bounced across a highway, crushing a vehicle and killing the driver. The plane then veered left and crashed into two huge airport water tanks. On board, 134 of 163 people were killed. Number 4, Sioux City United Airlines Flight 232. United Airlines Flight 232 was en route from Denver to Chicago on July 19, 1989, when the engine in the tail of the DC-10 suffered engine failure, severing the plane's hydraulic lines and rendering the plane virtually uncontrollable. What followed for 296 people aboard was a horrific ordeal as the captain, Alfred Haynes, struggled to land at a nearby airport. As it crash-landed, the wide-body craft cartwheeled off the runway and caught fire, and it was considered something of a miracle that 185 passengers aboard survived. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, later determined the accident was caused by a failure by mechanics to detect a crack in the fan disc that ultimately was traced back to the initial manufacture of the titanium alloy material. Number 5, Maui Aloha Airlines Flight 243. As Aloha Flight 243A weary, 19-year-old Boeing 737 on a short hop from Hilo, Hawaii, to Honolulu leveled off at 24,000 feet on April 28, 1988, a large section of its fuselage blew off, leaving dozens of passengers riding in the open-air breeze. Miraculously, the rest of the plane held together long enough for the pilots to land safely. Only one person, a flight attendant who was swept out of the plane, was killed. The NTSB blamed a combination of corrosion and widespread fatigue damage, the result of repeated pressurization cycles during the plane's 89,000+ flights. In response, the FAA began the National Aging Aircraft Research Program in 1991. Number 6, Pittsburgh U.S. Airways Flight 427. When U.S. Airways Flight 427 began its approach to land in Pittsburgh on September 8, 1994, the Boeing 737 suddenly rolled to the left and plunged 5,000 feet to the ground, killing all 132 people on board. The plane's black box revealed the rudder had abruptly moved to the full left position, triggering the roll. But why? US Air blamed the plane. Boeing blamed the crew. It took nearly 5 years for the NTSB to conclude a jammed valve in the rudder control system had caused the rudder to reverse. As the pilots frantically pressed on the right rudder pedal, the rudder went left. As a result, Boeing spent $500 million to retrofit all 2,800 of the world's most popular jetliner. Number 7 Miami ValueJet Flight 592. Although the FAA took anti-cabin fire measures after the 1983 Air Canada accident, it did nothing to protect passenger jet cargo compartments despite NTSB warnings after a 1988 cargo fire in which the plane managed to land safely. It took the horrific crash of ValueJet 592 into the Everglades near Miami on May 11, 1996 to finally spur the agency to action. The fire in the DC-9 was caused by chemical oxygen generators that had been illegally packaged by Sabre Tech, the airline's maintenance contractor. A bump apparently set one off, and the resulting heat started a fire, which was fed by the oxygen being given off. The pilots were unable to land the burning plane in time, and 110 people died. Number 8 Long Island TWA Flight 800. It was everybody's worst nightmare, a plane that blew up in mid-air for no apparent reason. The July 17, 1996 explosion of TWA Flight 800, a Boeing 747 that had just taken off from JFK bound for Paris, killed all 230 people aboard and stirred great controversy. After painstakingly reassembling the wreckage, the NTSB dismissed the possibility of a terrorist bomb or missile attack and concluded that fumes in the plane's nearly empty centerwing fuel tank had ignited, most likely after a short circuit in a wire bundle led to a spark in the fuel gauge sensor. The FAA has since mandated changes to reduce sparks from faulty wiring and other sources. Boeing, meanwhile, has developed a fuel inerting system that injects nitrogen gas into fuel tanks to reduce the chance of explosions. Number 9 Nova Scotia Swissair Flight 111. About an hour after takeoff on September 2, 1998, the pilots of Swissair's Flight 111 from New York to Geneva McDonnell Douglas MD-11 smelled smoke in the cockpit. 4 minutes later, they began an immediate descent toward Halifax, Nova Scotia, about 65 miles away. But with the fire spreading and cockpit lights and instruments failing, the plane crashed into the Atlantic about 5 miles off the Nova Scotia coast. All 229 people aboard were killed. Investigators traced the fire to the plane's in-flight entertainment network, whose installation led to arcing and vulnerable captain wires above the cockpit. The resulting fire spread rapidly along flammable Mylar fuselage insulation. Number 10 Grand Canyon TWA Flight 2 and United Airlines Flight 718. In the skies above the Grand Canyon on June 30, 1956, two planes that had recently taken off from Los Angeles International Airport, a United Airlines Douglas DC-7 headed to Chicago and a Trans World Airlines Lockheed L-1049 Super Constellation on its way to Kansas City collided. All 128 passengers and crew aboard both flights were killed. The accident spurred a $250 million upgrade of the air traffic control (ATC) system, which cost serious money in those days. The crash also triggered the creation of the Federal Aviation Agency, now Administration, in 1958 to oversee air safety. Hopefully, you've enjoyed discovering all of these top 10 plane crashes. Thanks for watching.